we want quality people. We don't, we don't just want numbers. Maybe everybody agrees if I just kick it off, since we have 16, right? Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you are having a good Saturday so far. At Moments Jakarta online. This time, our third conversation. We are very happy to have you and to have our really really interesting group of speakers today. We have Julian Low from Tezos Asia Pacific. He's the Business Development Director for Southeast Asia for Tezos. We have Mr. E. Ketut Alam Wangsa Wijaya, who is the Executive Vice President of BCA Bank in Indonesia. And of course, we have Deborah Iskandar, who is the Founder, President, and Director of ISA Art and Design in Jakarta. I will pass around the mic to each introduce themselves further. You know, they all have extensive experience. But before that, maybe I introduce myself also. So I'm Kai Hori. I'm the Artistic Director of Art Moments Jakarta. I'm also the Partner and Director of Chan Hori Contemporary in Singapore and the President of the Singapore Art Galleries Association. So maybe I will start with Deborah. She is leftmost on my screen. So Deborah, maybe you would like to extend your introduction to yourself, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Kai. Yes, my name is Deborah, and I've been in the art world in Indonesia for close to 30 years. I'm younger than I look, perhaps. No. So I actually started as a collector. I bought my first painting when I was 26 years old, and I've never looked back. At that time, I was an investment banker, so young, single, relatively high disposable income, and started collecting art. From that, I had a share in a gallery in New York City, down in Soho in the early 90s. And then I was fortunate enough to be asked to open Christie's, followed by Christie's Auction House in Indonesia, which I ran for 12 years, then moved on to Sotheby's. And I've had my own art consultancy for the past almost 10 years. And we've just opened a gallery, in fact, two galleries last year and this year. What I can tell you is art is an addiction. Okay, it started as a passion and turned into a career, but you never lose the passion for collecting. So I'm glad to be able to share with you some collecting tips and art as an investment today.
Thank you, Deborah. And maybe we move along to Mr. Ketut. Would you like to extend your profile, please?
Thank you, Kai. Well, I think my name is Ketut Wijaya. I'm a banker for more than 20 years, but mostly in consumer banking. And I started my career at various foreign banks like Citibank, HSBC, Standard Chartered, ABN AMRO, and finally I'm landed at BCA's, one of private bank in Indonesia. I start connected with the art community, of course, through my passion in art itself, just like what Deborah mentioned, where art is addiction, yeah, creating an addiction. So I agree with that because, well, art kind of more than aesthetic now, with dealing with more people with investment background, we can start to think that art can be also delivering the positive returns in tangible way. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ketut. And last but not least, Julian from Tezos. Julian, please.
Hi, so my name is Julian, based in Singapore. So I'm part of Tezos, specifically for the subsidiary of Tezos itself. So Tezos is a blockchain protocol. We are based, our headquarters is actually in Switzerland, Bern, and we actually, what we do is, it's a lot like Ethereum. So a lot of the NFT development so far has been driven by Ethereum itself. Like Ethereum, we are a smart contract, but unlike Ethereum, we use proof of stake rather than proof of work. So my job in Southeast Asia is actually to drive adoption where NFT is actually one of the hotter things that's going right now in the ecosystem. I've never been really artistically inclined, but maybe in the last couple of years. So I have a soft spot for Nanyang related artwork. People like Chen Suping, people like Liu Kang, etc. So still haven't got my first art piece, but hopefully at some point. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Julian, and thank you all speakers. So the topic for today is art trading and investment. So, and of course, with an Indonesian focus because we are coming from an Indonesian art fair, right? And one of the reason why we brought up this subject matter is quite simple. A lot of times when collectors or even just the art lover buys an art piece, they are told usually by the dealer, by the seller, that art is a good investment, always. And we read about it all the time. We see prices, even now, despite the pandemic and despite the economic conditions, personal economic conditions, some businesses closing shop and all that. If you follow recent auction results, it says different. Every time we have a economic crisis, the auction houses never seem to be doing badly. In fact, they do better during periods of crisis. So when we buy a piece of art, when we collect a piece of art, we're always told that it is a good investment. But what is an investment actually? And how do you make from the investment, or how do you liquidate the investment? And this is what we want to talk about, because everybody wants to sell, and I mean wants to sell it to you, but then how do you make the exit when you want to cash out from your art investment? So in Indonesia, in the past probably 10 years, there have been several periods that has been described as the booms, like in the Indonesian art scene, meaning like a period where active buying is happening of local art, which is really encouraging. But what is it really, and what drives these booms? I would like to give this question to Deborah, because Deborah has been around and on the ground in Indonesia for a long time. Deborah, can you tell us a little bit about this phenomenon in Indonesia?
I think with any asset class, there's always a boom and bust in the property markets, in the financial markets, in the commodities market. So when you're looking at investing in anything, the principle should be buy low, sell high. Right? With property, commodities, financial, it's very easy to analyze. It's low now and will go up. With art, I find sometimes the opposite happens. People buy when the market is strong because they get excited and it gives them confidence that this is a good painting. Then when the markets go down, like for example, in Indonesia, with a weak economic market, people don't want to buy. They go, nanti aja. And it's a bit backwards, because you should buy when the markets are weak and sell when the markets are high, because now you can actually negotiate discounts on paintings and art assets that when the markets are strong, you can't get discounts. So, but I think with the art market, the reason it's like that is the uncertainty and the herd mentality. If everybody's buying it, they want to have one too. And I think that's what causes the boom. The last big boom was in 2007. It started with the Chinese artists, and then everybody started looking at it going, wow, Chinese is so expensive. Let's look at Indonesia, Philippines, Singapore. So that was the last boom. And it was actually, as Kai said, right before the financial crisis. The art markets generally follow the financial markets they lag about 2 or 3 years. So when the financial markets are down, the art market is actually usually up, and like 2 years later, it'll start to go down. So what drives it is market sentiment. It's the attitude of the collectors. And sometimes there's really no rhyme or reason to it, to be perfectly honest. So my first advice on buying art is buy the art you love and look at it as a long-term investment. Art should be held for basically a generation, 20 years. It's not something you can flip every 3 or 4 years. You might make some money, you may not make money, but if you hold it for, i.e., a generation and enjoy it on your wall, pretty much guaranteed you will make money.
Deborah, are there any uh, Indonesian art that today are considered as blue chip, and what are they? Like, could you share with us, like,
I mean,
which
for the
artists are?
artists that are blue chip, it would be the first generation artists, the Afandis, the Hendras, the Sugionos. Okay, those are blue chip, and they go up about 3 to 5% a year. Now, within that category, you have some that are considered A+ paintings. Even in a bad market, will always get a good price, right? Some, and usually you can look, the artists are, senior or probably have passed away. You can look at their whole body of work and make informed decision. Is this his best painting, an average painting, a good painting, or kind of a dud painting, right?
Mm.
It's harder to do that in the contemporary market. That's why the contemporary market is so speculative. Having said that, even in Indonesia now, we would have what I would say our senior artists, i.e. over 50, Harry Dono, Arapmani, Scenario. Their prices are actually quite weak right now compared to some of their younger contemporaries. So for investment, that's an area you might want to consider because their place in history is there. Like August Sawage, Handy Weirman, this first generation of contemporary Indonesian art, their place in history is there. So it can only go up if you ask me, and they're very much out of fashion. So it's actually a good time to buy that category, I think.
And talking about investment, right? We cannot leave the banks out of it. We cannot leave the financial institutions out of it, of course. So I'm looking at Mr. Ketut, and and a lot of very serious art collectors from what we would describe as the affluent group or the high net worth group. Do you see them where you work, Mr. Ketut? Do you meet these people?
Yeah. We meet these people actually in affluent and like private banks or in our high net worth individuals. Yeah.
Mm.
And I think their tastes are built from time to time, considering various events and various artists are coming up, and people like Deborah also maybe start educating market with how they appreciate the art collections. Yeah, and I think it's a good sign. While a lot of events like art moments providing various activities, not only just exhibition, but also the discussion in many aspects that we can discuss. Yeah, because art is very universal. We can see and view art from different dimensions because it affects our lifestyle in this way. So I think people start to think about it, especially from transaction perspective. We see the growing transaction, people buying art collection during the pandemic. It's very interesting.
And does their art collection normally, when you, let's say, a banker oversees the portfolio, of their clients, right? All these high net worth and affluent clients, does it appear like in the, in the portfolio pie of these people? And do banks look at that quite seriously? That, you know, whether banks finance their collection or not,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think first of all, I would like to inform you that what I share here is my personal opinion, right?
Yeah.
My institution. But the way I see it, yes, because banks serve a various segment, and the bank is the place where their money they deposit with us. So our business is a trust business. So when the art is coming, I think they start to think to diversification of their money, not only just deposit, but maybe other instruments, just like investment. So in this case, the art is quite unique, because it's not only provides maybe positive and moderate return in terms of money because of the demands is also at different segments has different market, like Debra mentioned, but also is for aesthetic reasons because of the needs of, they related to their feelings to make them
Yeah.
happy, etc. So it's a very unique position, the art itself, compared to other instruments like a gold or oil, maybe for investment. Well, it's a different position and unique position. Yeah.
So the basically when people buy art, feelings are involved, right?
Yes,
Because it's
that's
not as
right.
simple as just
That's
investing,
right. And I think confirmed by art professional like you or Deborah, maybe people start to see that their feeling can be segmentized into the art collections, contemporary, old master, and then another, coming artists with different and unique art collections. So this is quite interesting to always keep up with this trend, and always monitoring, because I think in the era of social media, they also keep posting the auctions, and then they can feel how the auction is going, and then they start to know why this collection is highly appreciated. It really maybe the price is beyond their thoughts, so it's quite interesting actually for the people start to learn how to appreciate art.
I think
Okay, on sorry, Deborah. On that note, I want to go a little bit to Julian.
Hmm.
What is happening right now? Blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and of course, Tezos is one of those blockchains that supports NFT production and therefore involving a lot of artists. This is the other side of the spectrum. I feel, like NFT has a very strong community
Yes.
of artists, of collectors, including really, really young artists
Mhm.
who sell their work at say like $3 US, one pesos, what, $2 plus $3, depending when you buy it. And then up to like billions, we've seen NFTs sell for 60 million, for a million, for hundreds of thousands. Any feelings there, like, because it's kind of the opposite of what Mr. Ketut's clients, or the affluent and high net worth.
I would say it's actually, in my honest opinion, it's a natural progression. It's not so if you think about art, right, as an asset class, it's what we call a store of value. It's really a store of value, right? I mean, it and it will only appreciate over time because of the rarity of it, right? And the whole thing that underpins my industry, which is like the cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin. Bitcoin is I would say is the gateway coin for all of us. It really is a store of value. It's only valuable because it's rare. It's just unfortunately not as beautiful as art. So, because art has an emotional aspect to it, right? Bitcoin, of course, it has its own beauty, but it's just not visually appealing. You could, if I give you a 256 hash graph, you're not gonna like wow, So, so I would say the whole NFT, boom, it's actually a natural progression of art. But I think the underpinning ideal behind NFT is not just non-fungible tokens, right? Is the fact that we are democratizing ownership, because the new generation, millennials, unfortunately, I don't think we can afford very expensive art pieces, right? Because we can't, a lot of the Americans, they can't even afford a house, let alone an art piece, right? But so what they're giving, it's almost like a share into the art piece. It actually all started out with crypto kitties. It was it was NFT. The first Ethereum, I would say the most popular function was crypto kitties, and then which was creating a kitten that is non-fungible, meaning that it's how I would say time proof. So basically, the ownership is yours, and is the original piece. A lot like an art piece, if you think about it. So they automated the whole process, And then people were thinking, oh, what do I, put into NFTs? And they realized that, hey, you know what? There's this whole art world right there, right? That we should, somehow work with, right? And somehow, integrate with. And that was really how it happened.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about NFTs to me, right, is that people are also already treating them as investments, and I'm hearing left, right, center, people who buy NFTs already are making money. And I'm not talking about the millions. I'm talking about the thousands of dollars, category. But they are happy because it's fun. They collect some art. It's affordable, and they are selling them again, and they are making a profit. Uh, Most importantly, what NFT to me shows clearly better than traditional painting or sculpture is that there is an entrance and exit as an investment. You buy an NFT, you enter the market, you buy one, right?
Right.
And then after you own it, you could immediately put it back on the market, and then sell it again. Whereas paintings, like Deborah said, 20 years, you should wait like a generation, and then for the affluent and the high net worth, they might not sell it, because it becomes part of their personality. It is something that they use to enhance their personal brand or the brand of their companies. It's an image thing as well, something to entertain their friends when they come over. Would you agree, that
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. Art is it's a very emotional aspect. I mean, I don't know a lot of art collectors, but my uncle is one. He used to study under this guy called Chen Wenxi for Singapore. If tomorrow I give him, one of the monkey pieces, because he actually, Chen Wenxi is very popular with the monkeys,
Gibbons,
the gibbons, right? So he actually went to his house and saw the gibbon and studied under him for art, right? Very early on. I know for a fact if I give him one of those pieces, he will never sell it. You can give him whatever price, he will never sell that piece because it evokes memories of his childhood, right? And so it's a very emotional piece. I mean, and because of that, which is why the price is good, right? Because you can add the emotional aspect. But I would say that having an entry and exit would be very hard if it's owned by one single person. But if it's shared by many others, and art is to be shared. I think that is in the principle of.
So I thank you, Julian. I want to go to Deborah. There's this question, right? There's this thing that we, especially people who already are in the art scene, in the art ecosystem or art marketplace, we know that sales happen not only in galleries or in auction houses, they also happen behind the scenes. Deborah, is this true? How often does this happen, and why does it happen? And is that what we should look at or consider as trading, in the aside from auctions, in the art world?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you have a painting for sale, right, there's basically three outlets. Auction house would be first, but there's time constraints and, transaction cost associated with it. Or of course the gallery, especially a gallery that deals in what we call secondary market. Most galleries in Indonesia are primary market, meaning they sell artwork directly from the artist, right? Secondary market is a totally different strategy and way of selling. You do see a lot of the Indonesian old masters being traded by private dealers or even the collectors among themselves. So there is a very high market for transactions between collectors themselves. What I have to warn you with, though, in a lot of collectors is fakes, and I don't want to get into it, but you're better off buying from an established dealer or an established auction house because there are a lot of fakes in the market, and I see it all the time, and you just have to be aware.
And I guess this is what blockchain helps with, because it's a proof it's non-fungible, right?
Mhm.
If the blockchain or the smart contract is attached to that particular artwork, it stays with it. So it becomes sort of like your authentication certificate,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
actually, I've heard some folks who are exploring it. I don't know if they're gonna do it well, but they are actually looking at NFTs, but for fakes,
Mhm.
like specifically for fakes, for impressionist, like authenticate. I mean, it is a fake. I mean, you not
Mm.
fake. I would say a copy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So the NFT, the copy, and yeah, and it'll be hilarious if the value of the copy becomes
Yeah.
more expensive than the original at
Mhm.
some point, right? That's why there were people that were exploring that. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to fly, but yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
thank you, Julia. I want to go back to Mr. Ketut. I have this question about asset class, right? We keep saying art is an asset class, art is an asset class. What categories of asset classes are there in existence today? Like along with jewelry, I don't know, gold, diamond, whatever. Where is art? Like as an asset class, what asset class is it really? You know, like at what ranking or what is it?
Yeah, I think the art is very unique because we back to the characteristic of the art itself. Because art is heterogeneous product, as art is unique. And art market itself is unregulated, and there is no dividends or interest payments are made to the investor, just like stocks. So, but I think in this case, it's similar to gold and oil. And maybe in some ways, art is not highly liquid, but neither are other assets like private equity. So another characteristic is art is having a higher transaction cost, that should be expected with fine art investment, especially at the high end of the market, which market art difficult asset for a short-term trading. That's why I agree with Deborah. The long-term itself must be embedded to the art for the investment, because we cannot expect such a quick return on in the short-term period. And of course, there is a freaks of fraud and or forgery exists for this art. So the asset class itself is very unique, but still it could be considered as asset to the certain community who knows and understand this market very well. That's why art has a unique position in terms of the asset class itself. Maybe doesn't directly connected with the banks who really deal with investment product, which usually bank as a highly regulated industry has the certain risk management approach established in the industry. But maybe for those like a group who provide art secured loan, maybe as a business, this is very interesting. And it turns out to be it's already exists in few markets in other countries, especially like London, New York, Hong Kong, Singapore, who see this as a potential a business for certain segment who needs this
Yeah.
to tap for the liquidity.
I'm very happy you mentioned that because I was just going to ask you about that. so, so we all have heard about this, right? That when a person buys a blue chip artwork from auction houses, so say $10 million worth of Picasso or 20 million or whatever it is, very high value. And what could happen is that the buyer could put this piece of art as a piece of collateral in order to uh, receive loans from the bank. Usually the loan is at say 50% of the value of the artwork. But of course, we understand that this happens, like Mr. Ketut says, in Europe, in US, in like first world economies, basically, and it is not yet happening in Indonesia. I don't know, I'm here to find out as well. Is it already happening? Or if not, can it happen in Indonesia with Indonesian art? Let's say maybe not $10 million worth, but $100,000 worth, which Deborah, I'm sure, Handi Wirman's piece, is it already there, 100,000? Or
Some are.
could it happen, Mr. Ketut? Do you see it happening in
Frankly
Indonesia?
speaking, I don't think in say like another 5 years will be happen in Indonesia. But the thing is, no, considering Indonesia is an emerging market and the population is quite huge and the projection itself, Indonesia to be the 7th largest economy in 2030, say for itself, it has the potential. But now it depends on the institution who would like and prepare for serving this kind of segment. Because I think the needs is there. Why? Because you know, the market itself is growing and more appreciating to arts. And if we take a look on the contribution for the creative industry to Indonesian GDP, it's quite significant. And I think art is part of it. So if we take a look on the potential side, I think just a matter of, you know, people like us who maybe a little have better understanding on art, you know, collecting all the ecosystem that can make happen, like maybe risk association in the country to understand how they value art and how's the maybe other ecosystem like galleries and dealers, you know, start to inform the association in banking how to value and how to liquidate their art collection itself. So I think it's a matter of connecting, you know, the informations between those professional in different industry who can shape the growing ecosystem. Yeah, yeah.
Well, usually this validation, right, of confirmed artists or confirmed artwork, we call it, I mean, in the art world, comes from curators, they come from museums, they come from auction houses, they come from reputable galleries and reputable collectors as well. You know, they sort of like gave the stamp of approval that, okay, this artwork, this artist, good, you know, and then of course, authenticity and all that. And I want to ask Deborah the same question that I asked Ketut, right? Like, uh, do you see the position of art or Indonesian art specifically becoming, you know, or elevated in as a commodity for collaterals, you know, for financial institutions? And
To be perfectly honest, for financial institutions, not in the short term, because like you said, for Impressionist art, there's a ready market for it. But that's because there's an international market to sell Impressionist art. You know, the Danish, the Russians were buying it in the 1920s, 1930s. So for that segment of the market, it is quite a ready market for lending. For Indonesian art, I think it would probably take another 20 years before a bank would consider doing it. The auction houses already do it, but only on the condition that it will be offered for sale in the next auction. So say a client has 5 paintings they want to auction, the auction's not till November, they need cash today. The auction house will lend 50% of the value, knowing they could sell it at auction to recover some. And even now for Southeast Asian art, they don't do it for one piece. They might do it for a group of pieces, so to spread the risk. So it will come in the future, but I don't think in the very short term, because we don't have enough research on Indonesian and Southeast Asian art. We only have 2 museums. The expertise is limited to a handful of people. So until we get a bigger ecosystem of museums, expertise, curators that can value, authenticate, I think it's going to be a long time coming.
Coming back to this, what do you call that, idea of private sales, you know, where collectors sell to each other. Actually, it happens. The thing about, I'm sorry, Julian, I've been keeping you out of this.
Oh, no. I have a point later. I'll just...
the thing that, you know, for blockchain or traditional art, it is not so easily seen, and however, in Europe, in this happens in Europe, in US as well, in established markets, but the media, I think, also plays a role. For example, uh, I recall this guy. His name is Sim Chowitz. He was there's an article on him in the New York Times written by Jerry Saltz, and Jerry Saltz calls him the patron Satan of the art world, and all because Sim Chowitz's habit is that he buys, from young emerging artists, and because he has influence, right? He comes from a tech background actually, and he sells it back to his friends, and then his friends sells to other friends. But uh, well, when that happened, the media is watching, and the media writes about it, and that it creates this uh, what do you call that, furor, or controversy, or whatever you want to call it. It creates news basically, and people get excited. People might hate it, but people also want in on it, and I think to a certain extent, talking just about market, market people, because then you have new modernist masterpiece. It happens also with contemporary art and the younger uh, artists. uh, Anybody has a comment on this? Has a take on this?
I would say, yeah, because if you look at a lot of so right now, for Tezos at least, I mean, the biggest NFT marketplace, and this is something I tell everybody as a primer. If you want to go and check out NFTs, just go to this. I'll put up the URLs. This is again, this is not, they support Tezos, but they support a whole bunch of other people as well. It's called OpenSea, OPEN. Maybe I'll just go and type it in. OpenSea. You can just Google it. It's the primer, the largest marketplace for NFTs. And if you see a lot of the artwork that is being sold or being bidded and sold and bidded, a lot of it's pop art or digital art, or like, supporting artists, people who are alive, basically, so yeah, I would say that that's the current trend right now.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of investments or trading of art through NFTs, I feel that actually, digital art is not a new thing in the contemporary art world. It's been around, for like 30, 40 years already.
Yeah.
And I think it is only a matter of time when, artists who are also have been shown in museum or validated by the institutions will appear on the NFT marketplace, like with video art, with even performance art or sound art and all this. It's just that it sort of haven't been curated yet,
Yeah.
but I think sooner or later it will just happen.
And
Yeah.
and then on the I would say the authenticity, the thing about blockchain that I tell most people is we call it the concept of immutability. So the blockchain is immutable in the sense that, like if you pay enough to a person in a, let's say, I know it might be horrible for me to say this, but if you pay enough to I would say an art dealer, let's say you offer to pay more than the what he will earn in a year or earn in a lifetime, there might be a temptation to change the authenticity, the authenticity documents, because there's a human element involved, right? For a blockchain itself, we call it immutable in the sense that the moment it's recorded in, and it can be a private blockchain in the sense that nobody can see it, right? So if, let's say, if you're worried about people, if it's too visible, you can actually hide your record in a private blockchain. The reason why I would say it's immutable is because if you want to make any changes to the block itself, to the information that's inside the block, you need to attack the rest of the entire blockchain architecture, which is actually very hard, right? Which would take you more effort or more computational power to change the and this is how we I mean, for Tezos, we have this thing called passports, product passports for our NFT projects. So if we help our if you want to list it on Tezos blockchain itself, you can use this library that we use called product passport, and you can keep the authenticity or the transaction documents inside the passport itself, and so that will authenticate the transaction.
What is interesting with this blockchain, right, is that although in the art world we have been talking about whether we could tokenize physical artwork like a painting, but I think I just got an idea from what you just said, Julian. Maybe if we do not tokenize the painting or the sculpture or the traditional art, we could tokenize the certificate of authenticity. So if I were to buy a painting from Debra, and then Debra will issue me a certificate of authenticity, that certificate we could tokenize, right? Basically put it in the blockchain, so that becomes like actual proof that I really own it.
Yes.
And the next buyer, I will pass it on to this person, right? It's not necessarily the actual physical work, but the certificate could be ironclad through the blockchain.
Correct.
Am I right? Yeah. Okay, good. Now I want to ask Debra, since we're talking about NFT and crypto, would you the interesting thing about crypto for me is, if let's say I were to pay for a painting in Bitcoin, right? It means that it almost is a double investment. I'm investing in a painting. I'm also, the currency itself could grow or could fall, right? Like Bitcoin itself. As an art dealer, would you see yourself soon or already maybe now accepting payment in crypto?
For me personally, at the moment, I don't think so. And in fact, it's interesting if you look at the international auction houses that sell these NFTs. In some cases, you can pay for the NFT in blockchain, in different currencies, but the auction house requires you pay their commission in cash. Okay, so they're not willing to take the risk on their profit or loss margin for this, but the seller can elect to receive either cryptocurrency or cash. I also know with some of the international auction houses, even when they do, for whatever reason, they will immediately, enter a contract the next day to turn it into cash. They're not investing in crypto. They're using it as a mechanism like any other currency, but they hedge their bets like they would between US dollars and Deutschmarks, etc. So honestly, I think that's a whole different world. I think when you get into that level, are you really trading art or NFTs, or are you just trading currencies?
On that note, you need not use Bitcoin. You can use currency called USDC or USDT. It's pegged to the US dollar. It's like a dollar float. It fluctuates even less than the SGD to the USD or the Bruneian dollar to the USD. It's very flat. If you actually look at their charts, right, it's like
1-to-1
compared to other fiat currencies. So I would
Apologies.
if you ever want to do it, if you ever do not accept Bitcoin, accept USDT, USDC, or any one of the stable coins that's in
the circulation,
cryptocurrency. So, and the biggest ironic part of this whole cryptocurrency thing is that even though we are so anti-fiat, all our transactions are denominated with the USD. So,
I still have a lot to learn on the stability of the currencies.
Okay, this raises a question. Okay, thanks for raising the digital US dollar, and there is this thing called now the digital yuan. Also, maybe Mr. Ketut, you can, because this is a government issued, right? Digital yuan, and China being, okay, Julian.
No, because the digital yuan, Tezos is actually involved in it.
Okay.
We are connected to this thing called the BSN network. Because China wants to create its own digital currency called the BSN. So they open it up to 10 different blockchains beyond just Ethereum. So my Chinese compadres, so I mean the Chinese version of me in China is literally working with them to do what's known as CBDC, because in France, we are actually the first blockchain protocol to be experimented on with Society General to create the first Euro CBDC itself. So it's all designed, but yeah, I'll leave it to the banker to
start to, completing the for payment. Because if we see the art as a business is growing, then I think all the industry like and product associated with the industry itself will also start to grow, and that's why during the pandemic, I think it has pushing some galleries to complete their payment infrastructure, not only rely on the transfer with a cross-border transfer to entertaining their clients overseas, but also using the like a payment link to accommodate payment through credit cards. So the transaction will be more seamless, and they can deliver the transaction in a cheaper way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very important. I know that there are collectors prefer to pay for their art purchase with credit cards, because then they get all the miles and they get all the benefits from the credit card. Even if they have cash at hand, they always prefer, because banks provide them with all this.
Yeah. And I think in the more mass segment, maybe they start to love certain art collection, but they need to maintain the cash flow. So we provide the solution of like an installment during like 12 months or 24 months with zero
Specifically for art.
to consume.
Specifically for art, no?
Yeah. We support for that one. So it creates some interest for those who really start to be an art collectors. Yeah.
Deborah, I want to ask, like, talking about back to liquidity, right, or entrance and exits. Have you seen any cases in Indonesia where art is sold, not only because the collector needs money, but to save a business, for example, like let's say a corporation that owns good art, and then it's on a down at the moment and needs the art to be the the help. Have you seen that happen in Indonesia?
Not really, because the art collection would actually only be a very small value of the overall value of the business. And if they need money, art is probably the last thing they would sell because of the high transaction cost and the uncertainty. You might be able to sell it in a day, or it might take 6 months, because every art piece is unique. So, of course, it does happen on occasion, but more likely not, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are 1 hour, almost 1 hour into the chat. I would invite everybody who have questions. You could type your questions down, and then we could respond to it. Usually our conversations run for 1 hour to 1.5 hours, depending on your participation. If you have, lots of questions to ask our speakers, not easy to get them, here to speak about this today. So while we have the opportunity, if you have any burning questions, please do ask. We'd like to hear from you also. Are there any, Deborah, just now early on in our conversation, you wanted to say something that sorry, I cut you off. Do you still you still have that you want to bring up?
Well, I think one thing, I do a lot of talks on investment in art, and it was related to what Katut says, is how do you look at your asset classes? And the thing I found most interesting all these years of being a dealer is that I have two principles. One is what I call the couch rule, and the other is the car rule. And a lot of people say, wow, $100,000 for a painting, a Sri Hadi or whatever, so expensive, And then I go to their garage and they've got 10 cars sitting there, each which is $100,000, right? We know the cars are absolutely not going up in value. But when it comes to buying art, they think it must go up in value. And so I'm like, why don't you look at your painting like you look at your car? People see your car outside your house, they come in your house, there's your Sri Hadi, for example. So sometimes I find people are a bit illogical on how they look at art, because, and the same thing with the couch rule is they'll say, oh, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million, if they're just starting out. And the same thing, I'll go to their house and they'll have 50 million rupee a couch, right? So my rule is whatever you pay for the couch, you should pay for the art that goes over the couch. Yeah. Because that's the first place you need a painting is over a couch or in your entryway, right? Yeah. So it's meant to be enjoyed. People come in your house, they see it, you see it. It's meant to be enjoyed. So don't think everything has to be an investment. When they travel, they go first class, business class, they could spend $20,000 easily on a holiday. And you don't think about getting a return, financial return on your holiday. So I think that's the way we have to look at art is the first principle. It has to be enjoyed. And then if you do your research and you talk to the experts, the gallerists, the auction houses, the collectors, you can make an informed decision where it can prove to be a good investment.
I think taking from what you just said, with cars, with couches, with watches, with, a lot of these things, it's really the brand value, isn't it, as well? It's a luxury item. It is a well-known luxury item, branded. Actually, artists also carry brands. They are brands in themselves. And the best part about it is they are super, super limited edition. Like most paintings only exist in one piece, but with the signature, who painted this, and therefore, if let's say, probably never in my lifetime, if I were to own a Monet, I could actually connect with another Monet owner across the globe, like in France or in Italy or in US or anywhere they are, right? Because the circle is so small. There's not like 100,000 owners of Monet in this world. There's probably, I don't know how many, but the number is for sure so much lesser than, say, a Lamborghini owners. You would have quite a lot of Lamborghini owners in the world because there's so many models and there's, it's been in existence for so many years. So it is part of a brand, actually. If people think that owning, they need to own certain couches because they need to align themselves with the brand, that look, that aesthetics, I think is the same. There is a question, actually we did speak about this a little bit in our pre-Zoom session. Deborah, actually you brought this up. Recent auctions in Hong Kong, they have dropped the Southeast Asian category, and they are showing more generic Asian art from everywhere, as well as more Western art. And we feel that you had a comment on this. Maybe you should share with us.
Well, I think that's been a trend that's been going on for a while, but it's only been in the last 2 years that they've really eliminated the Southeast Asian category. Because what we see right now is a lot of the big Asian collectors are buying Western art because it is a brand. You have such a strong community between the dealers, the museums, the curators in the Western market in Europe and America, that you can easily establish a brand. He's been in X number of museum shows. He's collected by so-and-so. He's in this foundation. So that gives us collectors a bit of comfort that it's a brand. They think they can sell it anywhere, right? I think with brands, people only buy the brand when it's really hot. The number of collectors that really go to the primary market, go to the galleries and buy really primary market artwork are not really the wealthy collectors. It's the young collectors who actually get it right. I think a perfect case is Matthew Wong, the Hong Kong Chinese artist. You could have bought him 5 years ago for $6,000, $10,000, $15,000, right? Yeah. It wasn't the big collectors buying him because he wasn't a brand. Yeah. Now that he's passed away, he's at the auctions, people are interested at $500,000. And I kind of think that's a bit funny. If you didn't like it at $5,000 or $10,000, why do you all of a sudden like it at $500,000 when he's hot? And that's when art collectors come in the market when it's hot, which is the worst time to buy. So art collectors are a different different breed. When I was in the auction houses, so many things, it didn't sell. And the minute artwork doesn't sell, it's a kiss of death. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's a great opportunity to buy, because sometimes it's just your luck. So, you know, what the mentality for art is very different from other asset classes, I find.
I have my take on this also, and I think all of us here, like Deborah, Mr. Ketut, and Julian, Tezos, BCA, you know, all of us, from my conversations with all of you, we do believe that, you know, we need a lot of support, you know, in order to make the art market a true marketplace, you know, a desirable marketplace and an investable one, you know, something that is valuable, especially when we're talking about Indonesia. My experience as a curator, I can tell you, because I've worked with international art centers as well. In fact, once I was based in Paris at Palais de Tokyo, right? I did mount a few exhibitions of Southeast Asian contemporary art in France, in Japan, you know, in a few places. The issue is this: a lot of collectors, art lovers across the world have difficulty accessing art from Southeast Asia because they don't know where to enter. It's so loaded with religious kind of reference, with political reference, with cultural reference that they don't know, you know, unless you have a Frenchman who loves Indonesia, who's been to Indonesia, been to Bali, you know, and then they know a little bit of Indonesian, Javanese, Balinese culture, something like this, you know, like Sumatran culture, then they will look at the Indonesian artists. And then in a show filled with Thai, Malaysian, Indonesian, Singaporean, they will only look at the Indonesian because that's the only thing they know, you know. And then the one who is interested in Thailand, who's been to Thailand, who's lived in Thailand, they will only look at the Thai artists because they don't understand the rest. So accessibility, so I agree, you know, education and promotion and, you know, developing understanding, as well as uh, patrons, you know, these affluent and high net worth individuals, especially those who run foundations and all this. I feel that if they could uh, work together with curators and collectors to present more Southeast Asian art outside of Southeast Asia, it actually helps bring up visibility and, in the end, the value of their own collection, actually. And you know, we need Tezos and BCA to help us to do more of this, please. Okay, let
Yeah,
me see. Yeah,
more than happy to bring Indonesian artists exposing to the world, you know.
thank you.
Yes,
I volunteer as the curator, okay?
yeah. I'll help you as well. But that's what we need, because in the West, you do see a lot of corporate patronage. Like the UBS art collection is very established. They have I was in their office in New York, and they have a huge Gerhard Richter. And I'm sure they bought it 15, 20 years ago. That painting today is probably a $10 million painting. And again, why do people collect? You collect because you have a need for it. You know, this piece was hanging in their lobby, in the offices. So, you know, same thing. I deal a lot with my art consultancy. You know, all the interior designers work on the furniture. Art is never part of the equation. And so I think we need to change the whole ecosystem, that even for the corporations, you need a painting behind your desk, as Kutut has. I see a painting behind your desk now, right? That's an obvious place. So even if you just acquire it for purely need, right, it can prove to be a very good investment.
I want to ask Julian, uh, you know, how does the technology, how could the technology associated with like a blockchain protocol such as Tezos be more involved in the art scene, you know, and specifically in, say, museums or art centers and art schools, for example? Can that happen? How do you see that happening?
That is one of our prime initiatives, actually. So before, because I guess it has to go in stages. So at least from the top, what we have seen is that we need to get the online platforms going first. So beyond just OpenSea, there's another one that I highly recommend everybody go check it out. It's called Colormint.
Mm.
So Calamint, it's also another exchange, but it's a pure Tezos exchange. So we work with a lot of artists, across the world to actually help to how do you say, showcase the art, tokenize the art, and then try to move it forward. We would love to do an off-site, like an offline, event. Hopefully we can do something together, and then maybe have a offline physical presence, NFT. Like this art is NFT owned, so you can't buy it. But please go to the website, and then you can purchase it, and then but yeah, I feel this is something that as an organization we want to push for, at least in the region.
And Mr. Ketut, are there any upcoming projects, art projects, that is supported by BCA, like in Indonesia or elsewhere, like so?
I think in this scale, like Art Moment, I think this is the first, since maybe our understanding previously is not there yet, but now with more connection and more discussion with you all the expert in arts, I think there will be more structured approach in terms of collaborations in growing this ecosystem. Because if we intentionally develop this art as a business in a bigger scale, of course, we as a bank will be there for supporting you all. Yeah.
And I think you are the perfect person to lead art initiatives by BCA. You know why? Because you're Balinese. Balinese, like art and the Balinese person is never far away. Like
No, no. I think back to Deborah Mann's statement that art is addiction. I think I kind of being trapped in this.
well, you have us to help you with your addiction. Don't worry. So, do we have any more questions from the participants? No. Any speakers want to add more to the conversation? Otherwise, we will close the session soon. Any additional thoughts?
Well, I think just to share with you all that from bank's perspective, art has multiple dimension. Art as an interest of our clients, we can help our clients, in enjoying the art through exhibition like Art Moments and other fruitful activities, in collaboration with you all. And then second thing, art as a business, of course, we position ourselves as a transactional banking to support where the ecosystem of trading itself between galleries, dealers, and the consumers itself, the art lovers, connected and enjoy the transaction in very seamless way. And maybe with collaboration and more understanding going forward in the future, I think we can go to the next level maybe and put it art as an investment and collateral for supporting another business. So the value itself for art itself will be growing, And I think what's next, the most important thing is maybe we start to, sharing what we have in terms of valuation of the art itself. Maybe from the experts have the index or something that relate to the investment product, because usually in the investment point of view, they start to comparing maybe S&P 500 and Moses index and other things as a benchmark, and they start to take a look, because naturally as a human, maybe they start to play the diversification of their assets, Yes, I think that's the key that we should take a look. Yeah.
And I think also as a collector, you need to make informed decisions. And that's the benefit of an art fair like Art Moments, because you have 70 galleries there. You can go to each gallery, you can define your eye and your taste, and it makes the market a lot more transparent because you can check prices and transact immediately, right? Rather than going one by one to a gallery all over Jakarta. But when there's not an art fair, take the time and opportunity to visit every gallery. because art is all about taste. And you will find the gallery who shares your taste and your eye and the budget. So go to all the art fairs and do your research, do your homework, and it can prove to be a very good investment.
And what I've been told by some colleagues, in Singapore, they said that despite the pandemic, actually sales are not so affected because they are seeing newcomers investing or buying art. People who previously did not have time, now they have a lot of time to talk about art, to look at art, and to consider art, to learn about it. So they are newcomers, and galleries are usually very, very friendly people. They will talk to you not just about the price and trying to sell you the work, but really to enjoy uh, what you're looking at, and why it is meaningful. And so there's two sides to it. I always feel there's the marketplace, and then there's art itself. So you can go back and forth between these. Like the marketplace is not art. Art is not the marketplace. They are two separate entities to me, but they are interconnected. They need each other to excel, to survive, to grow. Okay. We would like to request everybody. We want to do a screenshot of the session. So everybody who is present, could you turn on your cameras so we at moments could take a photo of you, please, with our speakers. Everybody, thank you. Thank you. Wow. Okay, at moments, admin, please tell us if the photo is taken already or not.
Okay, we're done with the picture.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. It's very nice having you on this
Everyone,
Saturday.
have a great weekend.
Yeah, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.